Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtachadesh Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we're reading Bhagavad-gita As It Is, chapter 3, starting with text 6. And I don't think we have a cutoff place that we're any special number of verses to chant, but here we go. Karmendriyani sanyamya yaste manasa smaran indriyartan vimurtatma mityachara suchate. One who restrains the senses of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. Purport. There are many pretenders who refuse to work in Krishna consciousness, but make a show of meditation, while actually dwelling within the mind upon sense enjoyment. Such pretenders may also speak on dry philosophy in order to bluff sophisticated followers. But according to this verse, these are the greatest cheaters. For sense enjoyment, one can act in any capacity of the social order. But if one follows the rules and regulations of his particular order, his particular status, he can make gradual progress in purifying his existence. But he who makes a show of being a yogi, while actually searching for the objects of sense gratification, must be called the greatest cheater, even though he sometimes speaks of philosophy. His knowledge has no value, because the effects of such a sinful man's knowledge are taken away by the illusory energy of the Lord. Such a pretender's mind is always impure, and therefore his show of yogic meditation has no value whatsoever. So the Lord in this chapter of Bhagavad-gita wants to persuade Arjuna that one has to act in Krishna consciousness. There are two possibilities. One is to act, and the other is to refrain from action, to give up all activities. And here, Lord Krishna clearly says that that making a show of giving up all activities will not be helpful. Elsewhere it said, Sannyasastu mahabaho dukkam aptum ayogataha. for one who's not Krishna conscious, a yogata, simply to adopt a renounced order of life will be a source of misery. Because the so-called sannyasi will be a cheater. There's a story that Prabhupada tells, or kind of a story, that there's a class of men who, or there's a class of women who think that it's very auspicious to have a child by a sannyasi. They think this is a great blessing to have a child by a sannyasi. So they go to a holy place like Haridwar or Rishikesh, and they, with the hope of attracting some sannyasi. And there are also some men who know this, so they go to a place like Haridwar or Rishikesh, and they dress as sannyasis and wait for the women to come. So Prabhupada cited this as an example of the cheaters and the cheated. Or rather, the cheaters and the cheated. So if the mind is not pure, if one is not Krishna conscious, then giving up work will be useless. There may be some highly advanced transcendentalists who can give up activity and be merged in trance, but not many. Not many. So that path is not recommended. And particularly here, Arjuna is Kshatriya, a householder. And if he gives up his activities on the plea of sannyas, it's not actually sannyas, it's sense gratification. I don't want to fight Bhishma, I don't want to fight Drona. How will I be happy? Ka priti saj janardana, what happiness will I get by opposing Bhishma, Drona, my teachers? So then let me take sannyas. That means the calculation is, what will best satisfy me? What will be best for my happiness? So then he calculates, sannyas, that'll be good. One makes a material calculation. I'll get free from whatever. I won't have to work. Now I'm working, I'm paying taxes, I have so many responsibilities. If I take sannyas, then I can just have a free life. I can kick back and enjoy. And because I've taken the position of a sannyasi, people will give me money. So it will be very good. I'll get some followers, I'll get some money. They'll maintain me nicely. So very good. So this is not actual sannyas. Anashrata karma palam karyam karma karotiya sa sannyasi chiyogi cha na niragnirna chakriya. In the beginning of the chapter, Lord Krishna said that the real sannyasi is not the person who gives up all activities, but the person who performs his prescribed duties. Anashrita karma palam, without attachment to the results. Karyam karma karotiya. Karya means what he's supposed to do. He does what he's supposed to do, but not for sense gratification. Not for getting some result that he'll enjoy. He does it because this is my duty. Karya mityeva yat karma, like that. Because it's my duty. Karmandriyani samyamya yaaste manasasana. But this is not a good situation. Outwardly, his mind is, he's a sannyasi. Outwardly, he's renounced the world. But manasa, within the mind, smaran, he's thinking of sense gratification. Karmendriyani, samyamya, he controls his senses outwardly, but inwardly, he's simply thinking of sex, simply thinking of material enjoyment. So, indriyaratan vibhutatma. So, he's a fool. Vibhutatma, mithya achara, and he's a pretender. I'm told in the Brahmacharini ashram there was a moniker for men who were putting on a show of being really first-class brahmacharis, but who they detected were really not brahmacharis within their minds. The expression was creamsicle. Those who grew up in America will remember that there's a kind of ice cream, like a pop, and the ice cream is on the outside, it has a sort of orange glaze on it, but within it's ice cream, it's white, vanilla ice cream. So on the outside, saffron, and on the inside, white. So that should not be our position, that outwardly we take the dress of sannyasis, but inwardly simply thinking of sense gratification. That's a painful situation. That's cheating. That's not at all recommended. Better, the Lord says, perform your duty, become gradually purified. The activity performed for the satisfaction of Krishna will purify the heart. Yoga yukto munir brahma nachirena digachati. The person who takes sannyas artificially, or who makes a show of giving up all duties, will be in a miserable situation. But the person who gradually, who acts in Krishna consciousness, will purify his heart. So he actually becomes renounced, not officially or outwardly, but through and through, factually. His kayena manasa buddhya kevalayar indriyarapi yogina karma kuruvanti sangam chaktvatma shuddhaya. He acts with body, mind, and words for the service of Krishna. So his sannyas is genuine, but the sannyasi or the renouncer who gives up just as a material calculation for his own temporary happiness is condemned here by the Lord. In other words, he doesn't want Arjuna to give up fighting on the pretense of being nonviolent, being renounced, being a transcendentalist, being spiritual. Real spirituality is not to give everything up, but to act according to the directions of the spiritual master, according to one's duties in the varnashram system. That's wanted. Okay, we can see what questions there are, then we can, and then we'll see what to do from there. Any questions so far?
Hare Krishna, Swami. Maybe I can go first. Uh, uh, so, I just wanted to clarify this verse. Does this only apply to sannyasis, or does it apply to, uh, you know, uh, I mean, everyone? And the reason I ask this is, uh, I mean, I guess me personally, I struggle with this conflict of, I think the example you gave of, the the what's it, the creamsicle, or whatever.
Creamsicle, yes.
So I mean, someone like me who is, who engages in like society and uh, you know I guess what I want to clarify is, without rambling, is if I do have like sexual thoughts, is that is that a sin, or is it okay to have it? And if I do, like, what do I do in that situation? Like, do I,
Hmm.
like, try to suppress it? Do I try to control it, or is there something I can do or act on it? Or
Yes. And later in the chapter, Krishna will say, Yato yato nishchalati manaschanchalamasstiram tatastato niyam yaitad atmanyeva vashamnaye. Wherever the mind may wander because of its restless and unsteady nature, one should bring it back to Krishna consciousness. So, Chanchalami mana Krishna, the mind is restless, unsteady. Tasyaham nigraham manye vairiva shadushgram. Trying to control the mind is like trying to control a hurricane. So so that may sometimes come. Prabhupada mentions someplace that even sometimes in the renounced order of life, one may sometimes remember his former wife, or one may sometimes have some such thought. That may be there. It's not, as you said, all right. All right, my mind is full of thoughts of sex. Well, that's today's Tuesday, and that's the way it is. No, not that complacently I'll allow my mind to sail along in thoughts of sense gratification. Wherever the mind goes, tatastato niyamyaitad, one should bring it under control. Anatmanastu shatrutve vartetatmaiva shatruva. The person who controls his mind, for the person who controls the mind is a friend. And for one who fails to do so lives always with the greatest enemy. Usared atmanatmanam natmanam avasadiyet. One should elevate oneself by the mind and not degrade oneself. So we shouldn't allow the mind to dwell, as Srila Prabhupada says, on thoughts of sense gratification. But simply suppressing thoughts of sense gratification will be very difficult. Therefore, one is advised to think of Krishna. To think of Krishna. To simply suppress, I won't think of this, I won't think of that, that will be very difficult. But to think of Krishna, that's possible. So one should absorb one's mind in Krishna consciousness. For that, there are so many topics in Bhagavad-gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and one can simply chant this Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That will help us. Chanting means thinking. By chanting Hare Krishna, my mind is going toward Krishna. So in this way, we shouldn't be indulgent with the mind. Yes, you go on thinking of sex and be agitated. But if some thought comes, then all right, because I have this body, some such thoughts may come, but that's not what I'm meant for. So I'm meant for thinking of Krishna. What is that? Bhaja Hure Mana Sri Nanda Nandana Abhaya Charanadvindari. Govindadas instructs his mind, my dear mind, please engage in the service of Krishna. This should be our business. Is that okay?
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. And I think it's a practice, especially for someone like me. So I guess with meditation, you build more awareness of your thoughts. And hopefully, I'm able to be more aware of when these thoughts arise. And I'm able to, I guess, divert my mind. Maybe divert's not the right word, but like remember Krishna. And
Yes.
yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I see a hand there in the corner of the screen belonging to Susan Resnick. And is that a question?
I'd like to know if there's any other sect that worships Krishna other than ISKCON.
Are there other sects that worship Krishna other than ISKCON? Oh yes, so many. I was just reading in a book by Giriraj Maharaj that back in the 1970s, when some opponents were attacking ISKCON and saying it's not bona fide, it's just a batch of brainwashers and so on, Prabhupada enlisted help from leading people in India to protest and to express that no, we're all engaged in serving Krishna. The Janmashtami, the appearance day of Krishna, is celebrated by all over India by practically everyone. Not just by ISKCON, but you'll find that throughout. Well, I have an Indian couple here. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Confirmed. That throughout India, on Janmashtami, the whole country is having a celebration. Not just you go to an ISKCON temple and there's a big celebration, you go anywhere else, nothing's happening. No, everybody's celebrating. Formally speaking, there are some important sects of Krishna worshippers. The Balabhacharya sect, which has, I don't know how many thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of followers, worships Krishna. Then the other Vaishnava Sampradayas, Ramanuja Sampradaya, the Madhvacharya Sampradaya, the center of the Madhvacharya sect is Udupi, where the worshipable deity is Krishna. So, and there are so many Krishna temples all over India.
Are they as successful as Prabhupada was here?
I'm sorry, you're breaking up there a little bit.
Are they as successful as Prabhupada was?
Are they as successful as Prabhupada was?
Yeah.
Well, of course, it depends how you measure success. Those who are chanting Hare Krishna will be successful, spiritually speaking. They'll be fortunate. But in terms of spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world, no one's been as successful as Srila Prabhupada. It's unequaled. There have been others who've spread Krishna consciousness, especially in India, in this part or that part, in Maharashtra, Tukaram, in other parts of India, other leading devotees. But Srila Prabhupada is unique in having spread Krishna consciousness fantastically, unbelievably, all over the world. There's no one who's done that. Prabhupada is, and no one who will do that. It's already done. Prabhupada's the person who's introduced Krishna consciousness all over the world. Now the rest of us can build on that success or assist with that success, but Prabhupada's the person who did it. Like only Columbus could discover America. After that, it's discovered that everybody else could just follow. So Srila Prabhupada is the one who's spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. And we can follow, we can assist, we can build on that success, or we can expand that good fortune. Prabhupada spread good fortune all over the world by giving the message of Bhagavad-gita and giving the opportunity to everyone to chant Hare Krishna and revive Krishna consciousness. And the rest of us can help. Is that all right?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Anything else to... we can go on to the next verse then.
Sorry, if there are no other questions, I just wanted to clarify, ask another question.
Be my guest.
Well, I mean, especially in relation to this verse, I guess we are in a day and age where there are so many yogic gurus. Especially like if you check YouTube, there's like everyone who's got a channel of their own like spirituality like videos and things like that. But is there a way to distinguish a guru who is pure versus one who is impure, especially in relation to this verse where it says that outwardly you could have an appearance of being chaste and pure, but like inside you have all those like sensual gratification. And maybe I just want to also ask, does it even matter for someone like me who is a follower to ask these kind of questions? If it's helping me, is it any of my business to know if this person is pure or impure?
So first of all, yes, it matters who we follow. Before we come to subtle questions like what's in a person's mind, what is he doing? There's some who, anyway, people are teaching all sorts of stuff, but Krishna teaches in Bhagavad-gita, Manmana, think of me. Pavamad Bhakta, become my devotee. Madhyaji, worship me. Mam Namaskuru, offer your homage to me. Mami Vaishasi Satyam Te Pratijane Priyoshina. Then you'll come to me. So the first question is, are they doing that? Or are they saying, well, whatever path you want to choose, or any God you want to worship, or I'm God, you're God, we're all God. Are they teaching what Krishna taught? Or are they teaching something else? A Vaishnava Guru Nasyat, Vaishnava Swapacho Guru. Shatkarma Nipuno Vipro Mantra Tantra. One may be very expert in chanting mantras, performing rituals, and so many other things. He may have all sorts of good qualities, but if he's not a devotee of the Lord, if he's not a devotee of Vishnu, Krishna, Guru Nasyat, he's unfit to become a spiritual master. Vaishnava Swapacho Guru. But even if he comes in a family of dog eaters, if he's a Vaishnava, he can become a Guru. This is the statement of Shastra. So that's the first thing, that So that's the first thing, that you're claiming to be a science teacher, but you don't know science, or you're teaching all kinds of imagination in the name of science, or you're teaching anti-scientific thought in the name of science. Then forget it. You're not a science teacher. Prima facie, you don't even make it to first base, as they say. Samit Pani Shrotriyam Brahmanishta. The qualifications of a bona fide guru are, first of all, he has to come in the line of authorized teachers. There's so many teachers, they just set themselves up as guru. Who's your guru? Well, you don't need a guru. Then what do I need you for? one has to come in the parampara, the line of authorized teachers. And one has to have heard nicely. Shrotriya. Just like if you want to be a medical doctor, you have to attend the medical college. You can't just say, well, I have a natural aptitude for medicine. You may have a natural aptitude for medicine, but you have to follow the discipline, enroll in the approved medical school and do your studies. So one has to hear from the right source. One has to know the science of Krishna. And Brahmanishta, one should have full faith in Krishna. Or one should be always absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada answered this question, I believe it was to George Harrison, the musician, by saying we have to see who's addicted to Krishna. Who's addicted to Krishna? There are some teachers, it appears they have Krishna phobia because they never even mention Krishna. So then what is the use? How can they represent Krishna if they're averse to Krishna's message? You see? And there's so many, during Prabhupada's time, there were so many gurus, and they had big names, big followers, big numbers of followers. And over the years, it's come out that this one got his secretary pregnant, and this one got involved with that one, and so many. This one got removed by his followers because they found out this, that. So that kind of business, no, one should not follow. Those who are one should not follow those who are not followed. Andaya tandaya paniyamana. If we follow those who are blind, then we'll all end up in a ditch. But if we follow those who are following sincerely in the line of acharjas, mahajana yena katasapanta, then we can achieve success. So we have to see who's following Krishna's instructions, who's always chanting Hare Krishna, who's always speaking of Krishna, always serving Krishna. Is that all right?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Anything else here? Well, we still have 10 minutes, huh? Let's do this is the flip side of the verse we've just read. Yas trendriyani manasa niyamya arabate arjuna karmendriyai karma yogam asakta savishishyate. On the other hand, two means on the other hand, if a sincere person tries to control the active senses, karmendriyani, by the mind, manasa, and begins Krishna consciousness, begins karma yoga, without attachment, asakta, he's by far superior. Sa vishishyate. Purport, instead of becoming a pseudo-transcendentalist for the sake of wanton living and sense enjoyment, it is far better to remain in one's own business and execute the purpose of life, which is to get free from material bondage and enter into the kingdom of God. The prime swartakati, or goal of self-interest, is to reach Vishnu. The whole institution of Varna and Ashram is designed to help us reach this goal of life. A householder can also reach this destination by regulated service in Krishna consciousness. For self-realization, one can live a controlled life as prescribed in the Shastras and continue carrying out his business without attachment, and in that way make progress. A sincere person who follows this method is far better situated than the false pretender who adopts show bottle spiritualism to cheat the innocent public. A sincere sweeper in the street is far better than the charlatan meditator who meditates only for the sake of making a living. A show bottle is a bottle that you have like in the shop window. You have a medical shop, you have a bottle with some blue water in it, so it detracts the eye. But it's not medicine, it's just a show. It's just a show. So the person, Mityachara, whose mind is always thinking of sense gratification, who gives up his duties, but whose mind is always on sense enjoyment, is not going to help us. But Indriyani Manasa Niyamya Arabhate. Arabhate means he begins. He doesn't make a show, I'm a Paramhansa, I've reached the highest perfection. All right, wherever I am, let me begin. What is that? Niyamya, to control, to regulate. What am I regulating? Indriyani Manasa, to regulate the senses by the mind. Therefore, we have in our Krishna consciousness movement 4 regulative principles. No gambling, no intoxicants, no meat eating, no illicit sex, to regulate the senses. This doesn't mean that one is on the highest platform of perfection, but this is the beginning. Let me follow regulative principles for controlling my senses. The uncontrolled senses will be like serpents. They may bite at any moment. So one has to control the senses. Yoga Indriya Samyama. Yoga means controlling the senses. So a sincere person can do this. He begins, all right, let me follow some principles, let me control my senses. And karmendriya karma yoga, by my senses. Karmendriyas means the active senses, arms, hands, legs, tongue. Let me engage in the service of Krishna, karma yoga. So Arjun, you're not a sannyasi, you're not a sage, you're a fighter. So fight. Don't make a show. I shall not fight. I stand above all these materialistic activities. You're just a cheater. You don't want to fight. You don't want to kill your grandfather. You don't want to kill your teacher. You don't want to perform your duty because it's hard. It's hard for you, so you don't want to do it. So then what will you do? I shall not fight. I shall stand on the highest platform of morality. Bah. You're just chickening out. You're just looking for a way to slip out of your prescribed duties on the plea of being spiritual. No, I'm too spiritual to fight. What, too spiritual? Do it. You know, like a policeman, he comes on the crime scene and he finds out that the person who's robbing the bank is his cousin. So then he calls into headquarters and says, I'm feeling sick. I don't think I can't handle this one. I got to go home. What feeling sick? You don't want to, you're a dutiful policeman until the crook is your cousin. So you want to slip out on a false plea of being sick. So Arjuna, you want to put in a false plea of being suddenly a great transcendentalist. I shall not fight. I stand above these things. It's your duty. It's your duty. And you'll be more spiritually advanced by performing your prescribed duty than making a show. If you make a show, today you'll renounce the battlefield, and tomorrow you'll be back on the battlefield anyway because you're a fighter. You won't be able to help it. You'll go off to the woods for a week or something, then you'll be back because it's your nature. So no use making a show of being a great transcendentalist. Better to be an honest beginner. Better to be an honest beginner. Follow these rules and regulations. Follow these rules, even if you can't follow, try to follow. Practice makes perfect. And it all becomes possible by dedication to Krishna. Is that all right? Any other questions? These are very practical instructions. Krishna doesn't want Arjuna to go down the wrong path. It's not sentimental. It's not airy-fairy. It's not some sort of doing what I want to do in the name of spirituality. It's practical activity on the path of transcendence in the service of Krishna.
So if I had to clarify this verse, when Krishna instructs Arjuna to fight his brothers, the Kauravas, when you say action without attachment, essentially Arjuna is acting without being attached to even the concept of victory. The fact that by defeating them, he's going to achieve victory. He's not even attached to that concept. He's purely acting, and whatever happens, happens.
Yes, he's not attached to victory, labha, labho, jaya, jayo, tasmad yoga, yudhyasva. He's fighting because it's his duty to fight.
Mm-hmm.
Whether he wins or he loses, that's beside the point. But he fights. That's a kshatriya, that's a warrior. Not that he calculates first, can I win? If I can't win, I'm going to leave the army. That's a coward. Real kshatriya, just like Bhishma Dev, he knew that his side would lose. Jayastu Panduputranam Yasya Pakshe Janardana. Krishna's on the other side. That means the Pandava side will win, the Kaurava side will lose, but it's my duty. Let me fight. Let me fight. Jatayu put up the fight against Ravana. And even though Jatayu apparently lost, the Ravana cut off his wings and fell to the ground, but it was a great victory for Jatayu. He died in the service of Lord Ramchandra.
So let me ask you this then, that if the Pandavas going into the war thought that they were outnumbered, I think so, and
Definitely.
so it looked like the chances of loss for them was much higher. So I guess my question is, Arjuna, knowing this, with the possibility of his death being, the chances of that being higher than the chance of victory, would would it still be? I guess what I'm trying to say is, would it still be sane to go into that fight and not fear death or not fear the chance of, you know?
I'll give you an example of fighter. This is from French history. At the Battle of Waterloo, the French army was commanded by the superior general Napoleon, and they had numerical superiority. But somehow or other, the British wiped them out. The British wiped them out. They just routed them. But according to the history, there was one, they just, every division of the French, they were just being wiped out. But there was one division that was still standing. And it was hopeless. The French cause was lost. The battle was already lost. But this one unit kept fighting. And the British called out to them, brave French soldiers, you can now surrender with honor. And the French soldiers replied with a 4-letter word and kept fighting down to the last man. That's a Kshatriya.
Thank you. I think you kind of answered the sort of confusion I had in my mind.
Good. Okay, well, we've
Maharaj, we have until 7. So
I couldn't hear, but
we have until 7 p.m.
oh, we go till 7, huh? Wow. Okay, well, that goes till my next engagement, which is fine. Well, tell you what, if I have till 7, I get to take a few minute break now and come back, right? Like 2 minutes? Okay, we'll do that, and then we'll come back and we'll continue with this section of Bhagavad-gita as it is. Thank you. All the way till 7. That's cool. No time for
Krishna, Krishna. Can we beg up some turmeric tea? Yeah.
Okay, part 2. Niyatam kudu karma tvam karma jayo yakarmana sharira yatra pichate na prasidye karmanaha. Perform your prescribed duty, for doing so is better than not working. One cannot even maintain one's physical body without work. Purport: there are many pseudo-meditators who misrepresent themselves as belonging to high parentage, and great professional men who falsely pose that they have sacrificed everything for the sake of advancement in spiritual life. Lord Krishna did not want Arjuna to become a pretender. Rather, the Lord desired that Arjuna perform his prescribed duties as set forth for Kshatriyas. Arjuna was a householder and a military general, and therefore it was better for him to remain as such and perform his religious duties as prescribed for the householder Kshatriya. Such activities gradually cleanse the heart of a mundane man and free him from material contamination. So-called renunciation for the purpose of maintenance is never approved by the Lord, nor by any religious scripture. After all, one has to maintain one's body and soul together by some work. Work should not be given up capriciously, without purification of materialistic propensities. Anyone who's in the material world is certainly possessed of the impure propensity for lording it over material nature, or in other words, for sense gratification. Such polluted propensities have to be cleared. Without doing so, through prescribed duties, one should never attempt to become a so-called transcendentalist, renouncing work and living at the cost of others. So this is practical. To be a spiritual master is not a business proposition. One should not become a sannyasi as a means of earning a livelihood. And we see that there are people who are too lazy to work. And sannyasa is a very good business. To be a yogi is yogi this, yogi that. It's a good business. You'll get followers, they'll give you money. Maybe they'll give you sex. And you can live very happily. Why work when you can be a sannyasi? So again, this is cheating, to take up sannyas as a kind of business, as a practical means of maintaining oneself, or even maintaining a family. There are those who live in a holy place like Vrindavan as Babajis, as saints, as renounced ascetics, And they've got, on the side, they've got 1 woman, 2 women, 3 women. So, it's like their day job is sannyas and their night job is sense gratification. So that's condemned. That's condemned. Sannyas is not a means of earning a livelihood. Earning your livelihood is the means of earning your livelihood. One should act according to one's prescribed duties. Sharira yatra pichate na prasidyeta karma. If you don't work, you can't even keep your body and soul together. So everyone has to work. That's practical. I won't work. I'll just renounce everything. Yeah, it's not going to fly. It's not practical, not sensible. Do your work. Do your work. Doesn't matter what the work is. You may be a farmer, you may be a teacher. But whatever you are, do your work, but do it for Krishna. That's Bhagavad-gita. Bhagavad-gita is not say, everyone renounce the world is false, give up everything. The world may be temporary. It may be very good to give up the world, but prematurely, if we try to do that, it will be a farce. So Krishna is not recommending something farcical or supporting something farcical or simply something sentimental. I'll give up the world. No. Get back to work, Buster.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
If a person wants to be a service, he has to know what Krishna's will is for all of us, or for some of us, or whatever. What is Krishna's will?
Yes, therefore one.
This day and age, okay.
Therefore, one should be guided by a proper teacher. You do this, you do that. It may be different for different people. Someone should be a farmer, someone should be a teacher, someone should be an administrator, someone should be a simple servant. Everyone has some different work to do. So under the direction of guidance of the teacher, he knows, now my teacher told me to do this, my teacher told me to do that. So that's his duty, what his teacher tells him to do. That's his duty. Or according to the traditional system of social system of varnashram, everyone has some particular occupation. Someone's a Brahmin, someone's Kshatriya, someone's Vaishya, someone's Shudra. So you perform that duty. Either according to tradition and varnashram, or according to the direction, better, of the spiritual master. So the spiritual master is regarded as the representative of Krishna. So either we have to work under the direction of Krishna personally, as Arjuna had the opportunity to do, or under the direction of Krishna's representative, the bona fide spiritual master. We don't have to speculate, well, should I do this, should I do that? We just have to follow the direction. You just have to follow the direction. In the army, you don't have to wonder which direction should I march in. The commanding officer says, men, now we're going to march, or men, now we're going to sit tight. So according to his direction, we act. That's all we have to do. We don't have to speculate. We don't have to agonize, what should I do, what should I do? We just have to act according to the commanding officer's order. Then we're acting properly. So the person advancing on the path of Krishna consciousness is advised to act under the direction of the bona fide spiritual master. and then he'll make progress. Is that all right?
Well, it seems to me that we all have to go to work, and that Krishna's will is really full employment all over the world. And
The truth is what?
Ambition.
It's a little hard to hear you for some reason. I don't know why.
It seems that Krishna's ambition is to put everybody to work, and somebody has to really tell you which work you should do. But what I'm saying is, does Krishna have other ambitions for the world? Does he have an ambition of no war, an ambition of total and disappearing all animal suffering? Does he have any other ambition than putting everybody to work?
Can someone, as I said, I have a hard time hearing what she's saying. Can someone hear clearly?
Yes.
So what I understood Susan to have said is, so Krishna's putting people to work, or they need to work. And does Krishna have any, she used the word ambitions, you could probably say desires for what work people should do. And Susan gave examples such as no war or no more animal suffering. And that was the gist of it as I got it.
Well, before we get to campaigns for making this a better world, the first thing is everyone has some work to do by which to support himself, some occupation. That's the first thing. Before we decide that I'll campaign for this, I'll campaign for that, we have some occupation. You may be a plumber, you may be a carpenter, you may be a chemist, you may be whatever it is. Everyone has some occupation. So should I give up my occupation, or should I perform my work in Krishna consciousness? So Krishna is advising, no, you perform some work. It may be this work, that work, but you perform your work for me. Don't make a show of, no, I don't need to work, I'm spiritual. Yeah, you can't even live that way. So perform your work and be Krishna conscious. Now you may campaign for different social causes, you may campaign for different philanthropic causes, you may campaign for animal rights or human rights or these rights or those rights. That's all well and good. But what's the most important thing for the benefit of the world? What will help people most? That's Krishna consciousness. I may have a social problem, I have a medical problem, I have a political problem, I have a mental problem. So then you help me you send me a psychiatrist for my mental problem, you send me a doctor for my physical problem, you send me a social worker for my social problem. But if I become Krishna conscious, I become free from all problems. How is that? I become free from birth and death, which is my biggest problem. So the greatest service to the world is to bring people to the platform of Krishna consciousness. If someone's Krishna conscious, he'll automatically be vegetarian. If someone's Krishna conscious, he'll automatically be against unnecessary violence. If someone's Krishna conscious, he'll automatically be concerned for the welfare of others. But if he's those other things and he's not Krishna conscious, then it's all a waste of time. It's all a waste of time because you solve my this problem or that problem, but you haven't solved my real problem, which is that I'm going through birth and death, again and again and again for millions of lifetimes. And you're just solving my one little problem in one lifetime. It's like you're helping me. I'm in a third-class prison cell, so you're going to get me into a first-class prison cell. That doesn't solve my problem. I need to get out of jail. So the greatest welfare worker, finally, is the person who brings one to Krishna consciousness, revives his eternal Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada gave the example that suppose you visit some wealthy man, a millionaire. You meet the man, you meet his wife, you meet his son. And then some days later, you're in your car and there's the son, but he's become a beggar and he's like tapping on your window pane. Please give me some food. Please give me some food. So if you're, what's good for him? Do you roll down your window and give him a piece of bread, or give him a few dollars so that he can go buy some bread? Are you now being generous? Are you now being kind? Are you now being philanthropic? Or do you say, wait a second, I know you. You're the son of this millionaire. Come on, get in my car. I'm taking you home. That's the best welfare work, because when he gets home, his father will see to everything that he needs. His food problem, his psychological problem, his whatever problem he has, it will be solved. But if you just solved his bread problem, he'll still be on the street. He'll still be mad, wretched. So one should act as one should perform one's prescribed duty for the service of Krishna. And at the same time, Krishna says one should never give up charity, austerity, sacrifice. But the greatest charity is to distribute Krishna consciousness. So if we want to dedicate ourselves to some good cause, then this is the best cause. And even if we think that let me give up my work, all right, then give up that work for this work. Not I give up all work and I wander around the Himalayas. But that work you can give up for this higher work. This is the highest occupation. And it's purifying. It's not the same as just renouncing the world and having nothing to do but meditate. It's practical activity in the service of the Lord. So either perform your regular work, your act in your occupation, and do that with detachment for the service of Krishna, or take up this work, the work of spreading Krishna consciousness. That's also legitimate work. And again, the spiritual master will direct, yes, you can do this, you can do that. You stay in your job. You leave that job behind. We have higher engagements for you. So according to the guidance of the expert spiritual master, one should act for the service of Krishna. Is that okay, Susan?
Yes, it's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bo.
Hare Bo. Well, we now have 5 minutes left, which is not enough to really embark on another verse with. We could take another question, or we could chant Hare Krishna.
I don't see anyone raising their hands. Does anyone have another question? How about you? How about we chant for a couple minutes before your next engagement, Maharaj?
That sounds lovely. Am I leading the chanting? Is someone else volunteering?
If you would like to lead, that would be wonderful.
Well, okay, if you think it's wonderful, then it's probably at least okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnuvad Burman Suprivraj Kacharya Stotra Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Nam Acharya Sridhar Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kunigiri Goripan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai,
Right.
Gangamai Ki Jai, Jamanamani Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai,
Right.
Devi Ki Jai,
Right.
Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai.
Right.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol.
Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
Jai. If devotees would like to join me expressing appreciation from ours, people can be unmuted, and now you can join me. His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Ki Jai.
Jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Bol.